Welcome everyone to our Live Life Well cooking class. Thanks for joining me today. We are going to be making a veggie-packed stir fry with shrimp. You can use any protein you want, but shrimp is really quick and easy to make. So it's a great kind of summertime into fall dish because the stir fry is going to be really nice and filling and comforting, especially on a day like today. Here we're having a lot of rain and overcast skies. So it's going to be a really comforting dish, but with a really quick and easy protein. And it's also really great for meal prep. So this is such an easy one to make ahead and then store for your meals for a couple days at the beginning of the week. So let's get started. I've got my stovetop or countertop induction burner today just for easier viewing and camera purposes. But obviously doing this on the stove it just comes together really quickly. So what we usually would do is prep all ingredients, have everything kind of in place, and then we'll get our skillet going, toss it all in, and we'll have our stir fry in no time. So this is being recorded. It'll be on our Live Life Well YouTube page, and the recipe will be linked below. I'll also send everyone who registered the recording link with the recipe too. And this recipe is actually provided by our Weight Watcher partners. You'll see the secret ingredient that makes it a really Weight Watchers friendly recipe. That'll come at the end. And so everyone that joined today is going to be getting a tote bag and a recipe card compliments of our Weight Watchers partners. And you can check out more about the specials that we have with them on the Live Life Well website if you're interested in getting a discounted membership. So let's go ahead and get started. Make sure everybody's been able to join here. Again, my name is Kate Watts. I'm a dietitian with the Live Life Well Employee Wellbeing Team. And if you have questions or comments as we go through the recipe today, feel free to put those in the chat box, okay? So we're going to start out by actually cooking our shrimp for a few minutes. And while those cook, we're going to prep a couple of our ingredients that'll go in. So we'll just kind of cook and prep in the order the recipe goes. So we're going to start with some raw shrimp. This has already been peeled and deveined, as well as the tails are off. So it's just completely ready to go. I actually bought it this way. I prefer to do that with shrimp as much as I can, but you can get shrimp a little bit cheaper if you're willing to do that dirty work yourself. So now that we've got our shrimp, I have thawed our shrimp fully. We're just going to simply add a teaspoon of oil and some salt and pepper. So just a really light seasoning. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to go ahead and get my stove top going. We are going to be cooking everything on medium-high heat. So I'm going to get to my correct temperature here. So all I've done is added a teaspoon of oil and a little bit of salt and pepper. I'm just going to toss my shrimp. This is already heated up. To know if your pan is hot, you can add a little bit of water or a little bit of oil, see if it sizzles. And I will always do the hand test, which is probably not the best thing to teach, but I just hover my hand to feel that it's heated up. So I'm going to mix those together. I'm going to dump in my shrimp. And that's going to sizzle up right away. You could also add a little bit of oil to the pan. This one just called for cooking spray. So I sprayed my pan beforehand so nothing would stick. All right, and we're gonna let those cook for about 2 to 3 minutes on each side. They're already getting pink. I'm gonna put this raw bowl over here. Make sure y'all can still hear me here. Okay. So while our shrimp is getting cooked, and then we'll set it aside, we are just gonna prep our Canadian bacon. So this is gonna add an additional protein. And it's Canadian bacon is a great lean choice. You still want to watch the sodium, but it's a really good lean choice for any kind of dishes like this, whether you're doing jambalaya Really anything where you would use, bacon or even sausage. Canadian bacon can be a great substitute. So I'm just going to do a rough chop on our Canadian bacon. And you could remove the outer edge if you want to. The texture doesn't bother me, so I'm going to leave it on. Okay. So now that we've chopped that, excuse me for using my hands. Put that aside, and we'll get our red bell pepper going. So I've already washed my produce. And I'm just going to cut off each side of the pepper and throw out the core. And then we're going to get rid of all the seeds. I'm going to constantly kind of move my shrimp around. I do want it to get a good sear, but I also don't want it to stick really badly. That's looking good. So a couple more minutes for that. So I'm just going to get rid of the white flesh parts of my pepper. Just by carefully taking my knife and going along the edge, scooping it out, put that in the trash. Or you can slice it out completely if you aren't too worried about saving every little bit of the pepper. I love the red. I'm going to just do a quick dice. So I'm going to slice it and then dice it. So we're going to be cutting into thin strips. I love the red bell pepper in this because it's really one of the few fresh elements. Everything else is coming from frozen in this recipe. And I also like that it adds color. All right, I'm going to do one more stir on my shrimp. And then what we're going to do is just take the shrimp out and put it on a plate to the side. And after we finish stir frying everything else, we'll add it back in at the end. You could obviously do some grilled chicken breast or sauteed chicken breast for this recipe. If you wanted to do a vegetarian version, you could use tofu. And that stir fries up really well too. All right, I'm going to get rid of these last seeds. Finish dicing up our pepper. Just going to bunch everything together and come across my pepper strips to get a nice thin dice. Using my claw method, so my fingers are protected. And I'm using a smaller chef's knife today, really more of a paring knife, just because my items I had to chop were a little bit smaller, so it's a little bit easier to control than like a big chef's knife. I've got my peppers all ready to go. We'll put those in the bowl. Turn my skillet back on. I had it on a timer. And we can get those shrimp out of the saute pan. One second. Well, induction pan turned off on me. We might have to move over to the stove. You can see my shrimp are looking nice and pink and cooked. So I'm going to dump those in the plate over here to the side. Not sure why it's not turning on for me, but we'll just move over to the stove. So I'm going to get that going on medium high, and we're going to add in first our peas and carrots, which is just 1 cup. I got this from a frozen bag. And then we're going to add in our Canadian bacon as well as our red pepper. So we'll get that going on the stove top. And so what I'm going to do is add 2 teaspoons of oil into our pan now that we've removed the shrimp. And the sesame oil that we're using, you can use any kind of oil, but this is really great when you're doing Asian inspired dishes. It really does bring that flavor you expect from a stir fry when you get it from a restaurant. So I do recommend getting the sesame oil. I'm a big fan of the flavor. So I've got that heating up in our skillet. So now we're going to add our peas, carrots, bacon, and bell pepper, cooking for 3 to 4 minutes. And so I'm going to go ahead and dump that in there. Okay. So we're really just warming everything up and then cooking the bell pepper. So I'm going to mainly focus on how the bell pepper is getting cooked down, get everything nice and heated and brown. And if it does start to stick to the pan a little bit, instead of adding more oil, we're actually just going to add a little bit of water just to loosen things up. That way we're not adding more fat and calories, but we're not getting a burnt, sticky mess. So I'm going to keep an eye on that, and we're going to start to prep the next item. So the next thing that's going to go in is going to be our egg, and then we're going to stir in our garlic, ginger, scallions, and our sauces. So we're going to be using a low sodium soy sauce and a rice vinegar. Again, you could use white distilled vinegar, but this is just going to lend to that Asian cuisine flavor that we're going for. So we're going to go ahead and get our egg prepped. It wants for it to be beaten. So I'm going to go ahead and crack my egg into a small bowl. I'm going to wash my hands quickly since it's a raw egg. And then I'm just going to take a whisk and we're just going to beat our egg so that the yolk is broken and everything is combined. And this way, when we pour it into our pan, we're going to get that scrambled egg effect, which I got to say is probably my favorite part about fried rice is the scrambled egg bits in there. I don't know why it makes it so yummy to me. So let's stir our veggies over here. And while I did purchase the frozen peas and carrots like the recipe said, I did let those fall before throwing it into the skillet. You could cook it from frozen if you like a crunchier, harder bite to your peas or your carrots. I like them more cooked, so I went ahead and thawed it before using it in the recipe. So we've got our egg ready to pour in, and we'll do that in just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and cut up our scallions, also known as green onions. And so I'm going to use the whole bunch, 6 of these. And what we're going to do is trim off the ends. The little root parts. And then we're just going to chop the whole thing, but I'm going to keep it into 2 separate parts. The whites, which we're going to cook, and the green parts, which we're going to garnish our dish with at the end. So I'm going to start and just do a really nice thin slice. I love adding fresh scallions to dishes. It adds such good flavor and just that little bit of color from the green garnish. I really like on top of dishes as well. And it's such a like bright flavor, but it's not like offensive. So it's a really great way to garnish and add a little bit of color to dishes like this that are, faced with a kind of starch base. And when it's one big bowl of the same food, I feel like it's nice to have a little bit of garnish on top. It's all about the presentation. Okay, so that's probably going to be enough. I'm going to save this for something else. So I'm just going to kind of roughly divide between my light green and white scallion pieces, put those in a bowl, and then put our green scallions to the side for our garnish. So that's just about cooked where I want it to be, but it is sticking a little bit. So I'm going to get a tablespoon of water to add. Just kind of loosen that off the bottom. So what I just did is I'm going to scoot all my veggies over to 1/2 of the skillet. I'm going to let those continue to cook, and we're going to add in that egg. And we're just going to scramble it a little bit, keep it stirred up. Again, we're keeping the heat on medium high. I'm just checking the recipe here. And so that's going to cook for about 1 to 2 minutes, and then we'll add in everything else. All right, so we're gonna let that cook a little bit, kind of scramble it with the spoon, let it cook a little bit, scramble it with the spoon, and then we'll keep adding to it. So I'll clean up my mess here. Next thing we need to prep is our ginger. And I do purchase ginger paste. I also will be using minced garlic already minced for me from the store. But I do love using fresh garlic. Today we're going with the convenient option. But I decided to get the fresh ginger root. I just think for this recipe, it'll be nice to have the fresh flavor. And wanted to go over using fresh ginger root with you guys today. So first thing we need to do is peel off the outer layer. You can use a peeler for this. And it peels really easy. The challenge is all the kind of nooks and crannies of the ginger root. So another option other than a vegetable peeler is to actually just use a spoon and just kind of using the side of the spoon. It's really easy to get into kind of the curves and nooks and crannies of the ginger. And even using the back can sometimes work better. So I've just removed the skin from the portion I'm going to use. And then I'm going to cut that piece off. I think the recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of fresh ginger. Let's see. Yeah, so we're just going to finely dice that. Let me stir my egg a little bit. I'm going to turn down the heat slightly. Okay, it's starting to smell really good in here. So our egg is cooked. And so next we're going to add in the cauliflower, our garlic, our ginger, and our white scallion. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll dice our ginger as we get going here. It's really fast paced, so if you prefer to get everything cut and diced ahead of time, then it makes for a pretty stress-free series of making the stir fry. So we're going to go ahead and dump in our cauliflower is our secret ingredient today. This is a rice cauliflower that I bought in the frozen section. You can also make your own. You simply would use fresh cauliflower or frozen cauliflower florets, and you would steam, cook in some way your fresh cauliflower, and then you would just put it in like a food processor and get it down to this riced form. So I'll show you what it looks like. It just looks like white rice. But it's, again, you can buy the convenient products frozen. And again, I let that fall. See, things are steaming up good here. or you can make it from fresh. So with that, we're going to add in our white scallions to cook. And then we're going to add in our garlic and our ginger. So we're going to do 2 teaspoons of our garlic here. And so it's just 2 teaspoons of fresh chopped garlic would be the same for the minced. If you see a recipe that says like 1 clove of chopped garlic, then it will say on the container usually how much of the minced garlic to use for a clove. This one actually doesn't, but it's normally around a teaspoon. So let's get our ginger chopped up. And so any kind of rough spots, I'm gonna either peel off or chop away. I don't want those kind of drier spots. And it's very solid. It's a root, so it's gonna feel, like chopping a garlic clove. And we're just gonna slice and then dice. And I need 2 teaspoons, so that's probably enough. And you could also use a grater, a microplane grater, or even a cheese grater would work if you wanted to do that and get a really fine dice. Fresh ginger and garlic both have a ton of great health properties. They're really great anti-inflammatories, so really good for keeping you protected from getting sick. They also are really strong antioxidants, which fight off other chronic disease, free radicals, which cause cancer. So really healthy and a great way to get a ton of flavor without needing to rely on salt. So tons of flavor in this fresh garlic and fresh ginger. So I'm going to measure out my 2 teaspoons because it is very strong. And give that a stir, and then we're going to add in our soy sauce and our vinegar. So the sauces here are going to not only lend flavor, they're also going to give that rice the color that we would expect for our fried rice. So we're going to go ahead and add in our, let's see here, 1 teaspoon rice vinegar and 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. So got my tablespoon. Get that soy sauce in there, get our flavor and our color going. All right. And then just a teaspoon of rice vinegar. I do cook by the recipe most of the time. Herbs and spices are usually the only thing I don't measure. That doesn't mean I won't alter a recipe to like my taste, but I do generally operate from a recipe. So let me know in the comments if you're a recipe follower or if you're a, flying by the seat of your pants chef. Let's stir this up. And we're basically done. We're going to let that cook so that our white parts of the green onion or the scallions can get cooked. And then we're going to plate it up and we're going to garnish with some lime. You can also use some hot sauce if you want a little extra flavor. And then we'll garnish it with our green scallions. So let's go ahead and cut up our lime as that finishes cooking. So I'm rolling my lime and using a little elbow grease to loosen it up so that it's much easier to squeeze the juice out of it. I'm just gonna, we're not using the juice, we're using the lime wedges, but it'll still be easier as a garnish to pick up a wedge and squeeze it if you rolled it a little bit. So what I'm going to do is cut off the ends. I just think it looks a little nicer on the plate. And then instead of cutting it in half, I'm going to cut long ways so we get nice long lime wedges. All right, let's plate up a bowl. So the recipe says to add the shrimp back in to warm at the end. So I'm just going to do enough to plate for you all. So we've got our plate of veggies packed stir fry using the cauliflower rice. Got my shrimp on top. Arrange them. We're going to add our green scallions here. And we're going to garnish with our lime wedges. Here we go. So again, a little hot sauce if you like a spicier dish. You could also do some red chili pepper flakes on here, would add some spice and look really pretty. Red chili pepper flakes. So let's try a bite. Get a little bit of those red pepper, some of the egg, and a nice yummy shrimp. I love the flavor combo of that sesame oil with the soy sauce and the rice vinegar. That's really good. It definitely has a good soy sauce flavor. That cauliflower rice just soaks up the flavor. So that's why we've cooked our shrimp in the pan, our Canadian bacon in the pan, before we've added in the cauliflower rice. Excuse me, using the same pan to get that flavor. It's really good. This is not lacking in flavor, which sometimes we worry about that when we're making healthy substitutions. So this is going to be a great filling, comforting meal, but with that lean protein choice, getting some seafood in. Let's add a little bit of lime. Thank y'all so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this one and we'll try it at home. You could obviously use brown rice or regular rice with this, but I'm telling you, this has all the flavor you would expect with the egg and the Canadian bacon, the fresh green onion. Oh, wow. So I'm going to box up the rest of this for some easy lunches. This shrimp will keep for 2 to 3 days. Thank y'all so much. Check out our other recordings online. The next virtual cooking class we have will be going out in our newsletter. We're going to be doing a November class for Diabetes Awareness Month. So it'll be a diabetes friendly recipe. Thank y'all so much. Let me know if you have questions.